The car market has peaked. And no, this isn't clickbait. This isn't wishful thinking. This isn't an over-embellishment. The car market has actually peaked. In fact, we are quite a ways removed from the peak of the car market, and the data is trending in the right direction, which is great news for the average car buyer. But let's first look at some key data revolving prices specifically. Used car prices fell in August with the average price at $33,414, which is 34% above normal levels, which sounds like a lot, but when you look at data from July, in July prices were 43% above normal levels. So though prices still are above normal, they're about 9% lower relative to their historical prices today than they were back in July, which is huge. The largest price drop that we've been seeing in cars is cars that are between 1 and 3 years old. We've also seen a large drop in nearly new car prices, cars that are used but still very new. These prices fell 2% last month. Trucks and SUVs are the segment that are closest to returning to normal, with SUVs sitting 23% above normal and trucks sitting 26% above normal. Even electric cars, which have been hot commodities the last 2 years, have fell 4% since July. And yes, that even includes Teslas, which have been one of the hotter cars in the market over the last 2 years. These are prices as we sit here today. We are a few months removed from the peak, and prices have been consistently falling since summer, which is great news, and things are trending in the right direction. But in this video, I actually don't want to focus on numbers. Instead, I want to focus on the 3 key factors that are absolutely going to come into play whenever we talk about used car prices and where they are heading in the next few months. These 3 factors are absolutely going to affect the car market in a positive way, and they're going to cause prices to fall even more. First is interest rates. As you probably know, this week the Federal Reserve increased interest rates by another 0.75%, bringing us to the highest interest rate level since 2008. Now, the impact that interest rates have on car buying really comes from a few different directions. Of course, rising interest rates means it's more expensive to borrow money. 81% of new cars purchased are financed, while 35% of used cars in the US are financed. But regardless, financing is dramatically impacted whenever interest rates increase, because for every single dollar you borrow, that dollar becomes more expensive to borrow if the federal interest rate has been increased, which it has been throughout the entire year of 2022, and it will continue throughout the rest of the year. And though interest rates don't have quite as big of an impact on auto financing as they do in some other industry like home mortgages, they do still have an impact, and they make buying a car and financing that car less affordable and thus less practical, which will absolutely have an effect on new car and used car purchases. But where interest rates have a much larger impact on the auto industry isn't actually with the interest rates themselves and how they affect the auto loans. Instead, it's the trickle-down effect that higher interest rates cause, which thus has an effect on the auto industry and auto demand. When things are all doom and gloom in the economy like they are today, interest rates are high, inflation is high, people are getting let go from their jobs, and the short and long-term economic outlook is questionable at best. Whenever this type of economic climate is taking place, it makes it very difficult for people to justify a new or used car purchase, and they are much more likely to simply use their current car for as long as possible. This is because everything in life becomes more expensive and job security is the lowest it's been in a while. And as a result, people simply aren't going to be able to justify a car purchase, or alternatively, they simply won't be able to afford it. This is absolutely going to have an impact on the auto industry in the next few months and even in the next few years. But interest rates aren't the only factor at play here. Another factor that has to be addressed is manufacturer outlook. For example, earlier this week, Ford had its worst day in the market in 11 years. And this was the result of Ford warning investors of an extra $1 billion in supply chain costs during the 3rd quarter of this year. So the quarter that we are currently in, that we are closing out in just about a week. Ford stated that supply problems have resulted in parts shortages affecting roughly 40,000 to 45,000 vehicles, primarily high-margin trucks and SUVs that haven't been able to reach the dealers yet. Now, it is important to note that these vehicles are going to be delivered to dealerships. They're just going to be delivered there late. They were supposed to be delivered to dealerships in Q3. They are now being delivered in Q4. So though they will absolutely impact the profitability of Q3, they won't affect the yearly earnings that Ford is expected by a whole lot. In fact, the 2022 adjusted earnings for Ford is expected to increase from original predictions. But the reason why I think that this is important, maybe not to Ford specifically, but certainly to the automotive manufacturing industry as a whole, is the fact that these types of trends are occurring more and more. There are more and more manufacturers that are making statements going to investors and warning Wall Street that they might have to curb their original expectations, and not as many vehicles are going to be produced as they originally hoped. GM issued a similar warning to investors last quarter, and Toyota issued a similar one back in May. The thing is that over the last year, there were customers knocking down dealerships' doors wanting to buy a car, and dealerships were riding a high with record profits and record revenue. But this power dynamic is starting to shift because customers are no longer knocking on dealers' doors, so the ability for dealerships to ask for insane dealer markups for both new and used cars, it's just not as easy as it once was. So here we have multiple factors. We have the economic outlook, so inflation, high interest rates, job loss, which is affecting the demand in the automotive industry. People just simply aren't looking to buy a car like they were in 2021. Next, we have the power dynamic shift that we've been experiencing and seeing over the last few months. The reality is dealerships don't have the power that they once did, and as a result, customers are able to negotiate more effectively. But what about supply? Because there is absolutely a third factor at play here that will have a huge impact on the supply of used cars in the car market. Now, don't get me wrong, supply chain is still a major issue, and this is going to have an impact on new cars for quite a while. But one of the major problems we've experienced over the last 2 years was also a decrease in supply in the used car market. And due to an increase in repossessions, we now have a new stream of used cars entering the market. While auto debt delinquencies are still low compared to historical data, they are picking up. And if the economy continues trending like many people believe that it will, these delinquencies will only increase over time. The bulk of the auto loan delinquencies is coming from subprime borrowers, and this can in large part be blamed on the fact that people have overpaid for cars over the last year. And they have overextended themselves in the process with large car loans with extremely long terms. As borrowers get into serious delinquencies, more and more cars will get repossessed. And as more cars get repossessed, more supply will enter the used car market. And when more used cars enter the used car market, prices will come down. This is great news. Now, maybe not if you're an auto manufacturer, a dealership, or somebody that has overextended themselves with auto debt over the last 2 years. But if you're somebody who has been patiently waiting for a car to buy, this is great news for you. Prices are falling, they will continue to fall, and though a recession is never a good thing, this is going to be one of the positive impacts that will come from a recession. Decreased demand, increased supply, and thus you will have a much better time negotiating, and you will be able to get your car for a significantly better price. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.